explain to me then versus now. I'm certain now you definitely have a better grasp of what it is that hip hop culture is doing. But um, around 87, when Peter Piper is coming out the gate, which I'll probably, I mean, you would say Fonte, that's probably one of the first out the gate Bob
Yeah,
James samples. Peter
yeah,
Piper, right?
yeah. Peter Piper, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so
That was the 80s, yeah, 86, 87, yeah.
yeah, so when this is coming out in 86, 87, and whatnot, what is your immediate thought of what's happening moving
Yeah,
to time
I
with it?
believe my first memory was Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, and
Yeah, touch of jazz.
Oh, touch of
Yeah,
jazz.
yeah, yeah.
You're right.
they took my song Westchester Lady, and the way they did it at that time, because I wasn't following what was going on in hip hop at all. But I found out about it after the fact, and I listened to it, and yes, I was shocked. So what the heck, because it was just my record that played. It wasn't even a loop or a chunk,
Right.
and you could hear my melody, my composition, and suddenly I look at this album and it has a new title. They made it into a new song, and they called it something else. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, this is not right. What's going on here? And one of the first things back then that came into my mind is, hey, if they can do that, if Jazzy Jeff and Will Smith could just rap over the top of my record, well, I'll go out and get myself a Frank Sinatra record and I'll play some piano over the top of it, and I'll change the title on it. From I left my
Right.
heart in San Francisco, I'll call it Bob James something or other, whatever. And I knew you could.
Ghostface does that, by the way.
Well, so times have changed.
Right.
But that was my first reaction, and also,
But
and
in
I
your mind, you didn't think like some 14-year-old or 15-year-old is hearing that and now looking at their parents' record collection like, wait, I have that. And then now you have new fans.
not yet.
Okay.
Eventually, there's a lot of conversation about it, and if it had been just a fluke, I would have considered it more as a legal matter, and because throughout my sort of music business knowledge career, I have felt that copyrights and the protection of them are our most powerful weapon against big business. That if
Okay.
the copyright itself, the ownership of it, the control of it, so that the that you have some control over your destiny was a very big deal for me. I fought for it in all of my contracts, and the only way that you can protect it is by going to bat for it and not let people plagiarize or fraudulently steal it.
Okay.
So that was really basic before I even was aware of what was going on in the hip hop world.
Okay.
And the whole structure of the legal thing hadn't happened yet, where you could figure out a reasonable, fair way to license and all
It
those
was the
things.
Wild West.
So yeah, exactly. So you hear that happening, and I owned my recording of Westchester Lady, and the compositions. So I had to fight for it, and I
Mhm.
did. And that sort of started me off in this world that at that time I thought it was a one-off thing, and that I would just have to try to do my best to be compensated properly, and then go on about my business. But it proved that it wasn't an isolated thing, and not only did the field get bigger and bigger, but the the sampling of my music kept happening. So I had to make a decision about how to handle that. And eventually, yes, it became a very amazing deal that my own music got heard a lot more as a result of my name being associated in the hip hop community. So I ended up being very grateful for it. but always mixed feelings.
Did you notice an immediate paradigm shift in reaction? Whereas, like, if you start the intro to Nautilus back in 1974, it probably wouldn't elicit the screams of "oh shit" like that. I'm certain that happened at Blue Note last week when you played there.
Yes, and it's drastic change has happened. I have so much appreciation and new respect, new desire to confront this whole phenomenon. I want, as a copyright holder and as a composer who has fought hard to keep the rights to my music, I want to be one of the people in the music community that educates young people to learn about that, to learn about the business, to learn that these creations need to be protected and they need to be identified in the right way and entered into the legal part of the music business in a legitimate way. So I've kept fighting for that. But as I have learned more about the sample usage, I confronted RZA, and I actually confronted DJ Jazzy Jeff too, and there's a new cut on my album that'll be coming out in the spring that is a collaboration with DJ Jazzy Jeff, where it's like let bygones be bygones. We're not only friends, we're in bed together with a track. We collaborate, and I'm very happy that we're able to do that in a way that demonstrates that we're all in the music business together. But in attempting to actually confront this issue for me, which is when they took Nautilus or Take Me to the Mardi Gras and redid it or used it, it was my creativity that was in this chunk or in this recording, and I was not in the studio to defend myself artistically. And as I began to hear my music being sampled more and more, the chunks of it were taken in all kinds of different ways, manipulated more drastically, tempo change, sped up, slowed down, distorted.
Kind of like Explosion.
And kind of like Explosions, only I didn't have any control over the creativity.
Right.
I'm not there, so they do whatever they want. So I began to think if I could be in the same room doing my thing while they did their thing, a different result could come out of it where I would actually at least be able to say, well, wait a minute, wait, don't change this or something like that. So for 5 days, 2 weeks ago, I was in RZA's studio and we did pretty much exactly that.
Wow.
He did his thing and I did my thing. And a couple of times I would do a kind of conventional jazz melodic thing or a bass line thing or something like that. And he would hear some very small chunk of it, and he would ask his engineer, stop right there and take just these 2 beats, and suddenly my conventional melody had become some completely new rhythm that I wouldn't have thought of in a million years. And now we're confronting each other.